you don't want everything to be displayed as text. We invented UI for a reason. There was this tweet from Paul Graham where he shared that AI apps are the new browsers. Every software will be rendered inside those AI apps. Users that got exposed to a UI, so the tools that return, for example, a chart from their MCP app, these cohorts has 2x more retention rather than the ones that just interact with the MCP via text. APIs are designed to be granular and do atomic operations, while MCP tools should be designed to serve and to do a certain task end to end.
Hey Luigi, how are you?
Hi, Roman. How are you? Pretty good. Pretty good. Thank you.
Great. So thanks for joining me on the podcast, on the AWS Developers Podcast. Really happy to have you with us today. As people could see on YouTube and Spotify, we are going to talk about MCP with your nice T-shirt where you have a "I love MCP" on it. Great. So let's start with introductions. So, who are you, Luigi?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here with you. And I know that you were part of the first MCP Dev Summit back last year in April. And this T-shirt is comes from our participation at the MCP Dev Summit in New York last April. Yeah, so I'm Luigi, one of the co-founders of Manufact, and we build open source tools and SDKs for MCP. We also have a cloud solution vertical for MCP. So the short version of it, so if you want to ship an MCP server or an MCP app, we help you build it, test it, and put it in production. So we also maintain MCPUs, which is one of the most used open source SDKs in the space. And you can see it is as a high level framework that simplifies the development of an MCP server or an MCP app. There are a lot of things that are easily to get wrong when it comes to develop these kind of MCP servers, but it's also MCP apps, which are basically MCP servers that could return a UI as a tool, so you can basically show inside those chat interfaces also a UI, and this is pretty neat for different use cases. And we simplified that by allowing developers to just return a React component, and that's it. We also help with auth, which is easy to get wrong, and that's why a lot of developers are choosing and adopting the MCPU's SDK.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to unpack all of that. There was a lot
Yeah,
already.
there's a lot.
But that's good. I think the first piece is really. I mean, we can talk about MCP apps, but um, yeah, I don't know whether many people do know about MCP apps. They are getting more popular now. They are available on um, s- s- uh, different tools like ChatGPT and Cloud Code and Amazon Quick. But can you explain what's the philosophy behind MCP apps?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so MCP is a great protocol because also allows extensions. And MCP apps, this extension comes from MCP UI. And this was developed, started in, I think, October or November last year. And basically, most of MCP today is just text and action. So an agent calls a tool, and you get the data back. But what MCP apps enable is a UI. So a server can send back a small piece of interface that shows up right inside the chat. So think a form, a chart, or a dashboard. Um, you know, you don't want everything to be displayed as text. We invented UI for a reason, and so it was and these MCP apps became the first official extension of the protocol this year.
Okay. So basically, you you can go on your favorite um, agent, um, chat agent, and you can ask to render a widget inside the chat. And so, what are some of the use cases that people are using, MCP apps for? I mean, you can already use your agents to interact with different systems. So they could use, for example, if it is a web interface, they could use Playwright or a Chrome MCP server or anything else. Um, so why is that important to, or what's the value of using MCP apps?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us we are starting doing almost everything from those kind of AI apps. And there was this tweet from Paul Graham yesterday that where he shared that AI apps are the new browsers, and so the extension here is that every software will be rendered inside those AI apps. And great use cases, oh, there are a lot. So one of the most common is just to show charts, for example. So I was talking with people at Amplitude, for example. They do charts and metrics and product analytics, and they shared that users that got exposed to a UI, so the tools that return, for example, a chart from their MCP app, um, they those kind of these kind of users, these cohorts, has 2x more retention rather than the ones that just interact with MCP via text. And we're seeing this a lot. So, and also I think that this is a way how software products will not become just system of records, but they will be still able to offer experience to their users.
Okay, but I mean, if you can extract the data, I mean, Cloud Code have been doing that for a while, or for a long time actually. You could ask Cloud to retrieve the data and render that, and Cloud was, rendering that in React, natively. So what's the added value of going through an MCP app, and is this less override? Are we using less token in this way, or what's?
Yeah, this is true, and I think that artifacts inside chats are pretty cool and could serve different use cases. Imagine like you want to access an insights or a dashboard that you designed, or your colleague designs. You want to access that specific dashboard, so you don't want Claude to recreate it from scratch, for example.
Okay. So basically, the promise of MCP apps is that our main interface between the human and the machine becomes this AI chat agent, and we can access different apps that are exposed. And we as developers, we can build those interfaces so they can be rendered the way we want on different chat agents. So this is where also we can design some user experiences that are well thought, or as we think are the best for that type of media with chat agent. Right?
Exactly. That's why you use certain tools over others, because they are opinionated in how to present some UI, how some workflows are should be done, and you still want to follow this structure, even inside those chat interfaces. And the cool thing is that if this lives inside the chat interface, you can also pull data and information and structure from different sources and different tools, exactly how you're doing that right now, when in our knowledge work, where you switch tabs, you switch software, exactly like that.
Okay. So can we go under the hood and discuss a bit more how this is implemented? So you do have the MCP use SDK that is available. That is on GitHub. You have 10,000 stars on it, so it's quite popular. And but what do we need to do as a developer to make that happen? Can you walk us through the process of exposing an application? Does it have to be a web app in the first place to be able to expose a an MCP app? Or
Yeah. So of course, MCP apps are best supported in TypeScript language, but there are also other frameworks like FastMCP, for example, where is the king of Python MCP servers, and you are able to achieve the kind of the same. But if you are a TypeScript guy, for example, you are best served with MCP use SDK. So this is a great topic, because under the hood, basically, you can just um, reuse certain React components that you already have in your web application, and just copy and paste. And with minimal adaptation, we have a use MCP hook that basically does the heavy lifting to expose your a certain component that accepts, for example, React props, but instead of props, you get the component is getting those props from the hook, and this acts like a bridge between the tool that accepts the MCP tool that accepts arguments, and those arguments are filled by the agent. So instead of passing information from a React component to another, like in classic web application, the information and the props, some of the props are populated from the tool arguments.
okay, so if I get it right, so it's written in TypeScript, so you can develop that in TypeScript. You can expose an existing React app and retrieve some of the components. So you will build your MCP server that is connecting to this application, and then the client that supports MCP app will connect to the MCP server and have access to this app, but you need to call it out. So it's like a tool for, I mean, it's like a tool, so you need to be explicit about the tool that you want to use that is going to expose that web interface, that's interface.
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, the server stays a normal MCP server. The host is the I client, and the view is the piece of UI which basically runs in a sandboxed iframe, and this also allows you to display allow AI clients to display those kind of UIs in a protected way, and this is designed with safety also in mind from the beginning, because of course, like, if you're running JavaScript inside a UI component, you can do also bad things, right?
Hmm.
But since it's an iframe is battle tested, and also the communication is well defined. The communication between the model, so the AI, and the MCP server that also returns a UI is standardized. So you expose this UI as a tool, but also there is a way you can also interact with the UI and send back events to the model itself, to the AI itself. So, for example, if you interact with, I don't know, with a chart that is displayed inside the chat, you can design this kind of interface in a cool way that maybe on click on a certain part of the chart will trigger back another tool call that is done
Okay.
in the chat itself.
Okay. So, for example, if you have a chart with a list of countries and let's say population, you can click on let's say Italy, and that would give the population of Italy in the chat.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
you can design pretty cool things.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Cool. And you said earlier that it is possible to, I mean, because the MCP server supports authentication, um, you can um, you can use OAuth to authenticate on this web interface. So through our agent, we can make sure that you have only access to the apps that you are supposed to, that you are authorized
Exactly.
on.
Yeah. I still remember when at the beginning of MCP, you needed to get an API key
Yeah,
and add it in some way in the headers or in the endpoint of the MCP server itself. We
the
now
direct open.
basically all the production MCP server has some sort of auth implemented.
Okay, yeah. So the do you, I think I read on your website that most of the MCP endpoints are dead. So how do we? How is your solution helping to maintain that you have a working environment that your MCP servers are, and the applications that are exposed through those MCP servers are running and can support your enterprise applications if you are working in enterprise.
I'm not sure. I got what do you mean about by that?
I think the question was more about how do you get to. I mean, there have been a lot of prototyping with MCP because 2025 was the year of MCP. Everyone wanted to do MCP, so a lot of things have been done, and a lot of. So I guess the question is, how do you get to production with MCP use? Is that something that you have specific parameters or powers that you are offering to developers to be able to operate MCP servers in production?
Yeah. So when you have especially regarding the MCP servers that maybe you were referencing, and they've been built in 2025. A lot of them were community done by the community in general. And often you needed to run those MCP servers locally, so as an STDIO MCP server.
Yeah.
So, but after that, after it was pretty clear that there was a huge pull from the market in using those MCP servers, and that's when a lot of companies built the first version of their MCP. Maybe they still built with as STDAO back in 2025. Now, basically, all of them are built with
HTTPS
streamable,
pretty
yeah,
much.
streamable HTTP, and also. You probably have seen pretty difficult instructions on how to install a certain MCP server because, of course, every client has its own way to install an MCP server. But we're seeing, in general, we're seeing consolidation in the way you find and add those MCP servers with marketplaces like ChatGPT App Store, Cloud Connector Marketplace, but also Amazon Quick will have a sort of marketplace. Actually, is already I think already offers some integrations in this way. And yeah, like I still remember when back then you had to find an MCP server. You needed to look at the GitHub repository, or there were registries,
Yeah.
MCP registries, like in the early days of the web, right? In the early, Yahoo was a registry in the beginning, right? And also Amazon, I think they picked the name starting with an A, so they could be ranked on top of those registries. Um, but with marketplaces in general, those AI clients are getting smarter, and you can they will also recommend certain connectors to serve a certain task based on the user query. So I don't know if I answer your question actually, because probably I
Yeah, I
digressed a
think we
bit.
yeah, I think we discussed a bit, so let me rephrase. I mean,
Yeah.
do you see good practices emerging for companies who wants to expose their services via MCP server? Well, so what do you see?
Yeah. So, in terms of best practices, at the beginning, a lot of companies were just trying to expose their OpenAPI spec as an MCP. And this is fundamentally not the best way, because APIs are designed to be granular and do atomic operations,
Hmm.
while MCP tools should be designed to serve and to do a certain task end to end. So, because this is also how agents tend to operate, because it's easy for an agent to get confused on the order of tools to call, right? So when you design a web app, for example, if you have a web app and you design the UI and the flows, you can the developer decides, right? You call this API first, then you get the data, then you have enough information to call this other API. With MCP tools is not the case, and that's why you want to design those tools to serve a purpose end to end.
Okay.
This is one of the best practices out there.
And you want also to limit, I mean, as a consequence, but also as a corollary, you want to limit the number of MCP tools that are exposed for a particular server, right? Because
Yeah, yeah, indeed. There are this was a limitation that basically also um, let's say put MCP not in a good light at the beginning, because it was super easy to with just a couple of MCP server to fill the whole context window of an
hmm.
agent.
Hmm.
But now MCP clients, so if you're using the most common, the most famous ones, they have implemented a way to search across different MCP servers and tools, and to do a certain task, so that you're not adding on every request, on the first chat request, all the tool descriptions and tool names for an agent to pick. So this is a kind of a solved problem right now. But yeah, in general, you don't want to expose. This was the recommendation. You don't want to expose too many tools from an MCP.
Okay. And so are all clients support? I mean, all the main clients supporting natively progressive disclosure of tools in via MCP, or do you have to use skills to do that?
Like the main ones supported. I was trying some pretty famous open source agent harnesses, and their MCP support is not great. So there is still work to be done, and I had to. Yeah, it felt basically. I was back 6 months when I was using it, because I had to disconnect certain MCP servers while I wanted to perform some operation. But yeah, the most famous ones already support this progressive disclosure.
Okay, cool. And And so we talked about MCP servers. Can you implement an MCP client with MCPUs? Do you have in the SDK also the client?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at the beginning, actually, when we started with an MCP client and an MCP agent. So basically, this was early 2025. MCP just had just come out, and back then the only way to use it was through closed app.
Mhm.
And my co-founder Pietro had Linux, and back then Cloud Desktop wasn't available on Linux, and we wanted to use it to use MCP Server in our own code. So one afternoon, he wired up a tiny agent to an MCP server, so implementing also. So MCP was implementing MCP and a simple MCP agent with a client in that, and yeah, so we still support this. So if you need to build a client, you can still use MCPUs.
Okay, but most of the agentic framework are also offering, uh,
Nowadays, yeah.
yeah,
That's
the
why we then shift our focus on building MCP servers, because we saw that this was evolving, and MCP we saw how many cool things could have been done via MCP, and so we wanted to simplify this for developers.
yeah, cool. Okay, so yeah, so for example, a developer could use trans agents to create their agentic system, call tools via the Strands SDK, and the server piece would be, for example, implemented with MCPUs.
Exactly.
Good. Okay. The uh, One other thing that I guess a question that will come up for AWS developers is how this can be integrated with the Agent Core Gateway, which is one of our main service that is part of this building blocks that we're offering to developers to build agentic applications. And Agent Core Gateway can handle auth and the policies, and even also um, convert existing Lambda function or API into MCP servers. So, how do you see a potential integration here on how we could work together? And probably we should put together a blog post afterwards to explain that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We should do that, and then we're already exploring this. So MCPUs can sit on the server side, and Agent Core Gateway can sit in front of it. So basically, we build the MCP server. You can build with us the MCP server, MCP layer, so tools, UI, and also you can use us for testing, making sure that also your MCP app works across different clients and so on, while the Agent Core gateway can um, handle the enterprise concerns around the layers of auth policing, routing, and so on.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. We can do that. The Are you supporting any observability tool? I mean, can you export hotel, for example, with MCP
Yeah,
use? Yeah.
yeah. So with MCPUs can be instrumented in this way, and also if for example you want to quickly deploy an MCP server, you can just connect your GitHub repository with Manufact. Like this is the cloud part, which is vertical for MCP, and it exposes an endpoint that can be added, for example, in the gateway for to be used inside the AWS, and in the Manufact cloud provides supported, let's say, ready to be used analytics and logs and all the things that you will need. And the cool thing is that you have a breakdown based on the tool calls.
Hmm.
So you have information about how many which tool calls are called, which clients are connected to your MCP server from which geography. So let's say that you have an MCP server that you exposing also to different sources. This could be pretty handy for you. And also you can have a way to trace the whole interaction with different tools in a session with different tools. So you can extract information and usage patterns on how users through those chat interfaces, but also agents are using the MCP server itself. And with also a breakdown of maybe the error rates or if something gets wrong for certain tools. So you need to basically change how you think, and you need to understand how all the different tool calls are called, especially if those tools return a UI.
Makes sense. Okay. Um, okay. I think I got that. How do you see? I mean, what are some of the use cases that you see the most across all the MCPUs? Because I think there were a lot of excitement for MCP in 2025, and most of the people were using MCP through coding agents. So your Cursor, your Kiro, your Cloud Code, or whatever. But MCP has been also designed to build agentic applications. So where basically the MCP is a way to extend an agent with more tools, or even call other agents with the pattern uh, agent tool. So what are some of the use cases that you see the most?
Yeah, so we're seeing different use cases. For example, we see companies that are looking to build with MCPUs and then deploy on Manufacture to be in the ChatGPT App Store. And those use cases are more for the B2C side. You can what we see is this split between ChatGPT more for consumers. You build the MCP service and apps more for consumers, while uh, Claude, but also Cursor, but also Amazon Quick, more for B2B and enterprise settings. So, for example, for ChatGPT, you can ask a lot of in a lot of European countries. There are for example, companies that offer mortgages or insurance, since their customers are asking those questions now on ChatGPT, are building their MCP apps with
Mm.
MCPUs and deployed on Manufact for the to be in the ChatGPT App Store, while for Claude and for more B2B. It's something dev tools that dev tool companies that are building tools for product managers, but also sales, CRMs. Every CRM is now on the cloud, on cloud, and so on. And yeah, everything that relates to work is there. And we're seeing a lot of companies embedding an agent inside as a tool.
Okay.
So you have classic tools that have different arguments, but also you can see one tool that has all the argument, basically a prompt
A prompt
that
to call
that
another
the
agent. Yeah.
agent does to another agent. And I mean, in some sense, it makes sense because A2A never actually realized, I think, and MCP is becoming the A2A platform, the A2A protocol. And this makes sense because you don't want to put in a session in a single session all the context and all the thinking that an agent, for example, looking at your recent email transcript, meeting transcript, um, will do. So this is good that lives in the MCP server itself, while it just returns the summary to the chat via MCP while you're doing certain tasks.
Yeah, yeah. We've been using that a lot with trends. This pattern of agent as tool. That's something that is working pretty well to orchestrate multiple agents working together and calling them. So pretty interesting indeed. Okay, the MCP is still evolving. AWS is a contributor to the project. Wh- I mean, it's evolving fast. What are some of the primitives that you are the most excited about with regards to MCP? What's
Yeah, so one topic that I think MCP a new extent, actually this is something that is there, everyone is already working on, the working groups are working on, is offering and exposing skills from the MCP itself. And you can kind of already do that, and you've seen companies, but like even our MCP server, you can expose kind of skills as MCP tools. So sorry, as MCP prompts,
mm,
and basically all the clients support prompts. So MCP has three main primitives: tools, resources, and prompts. Prompts are kind of underused, and clients are not implementing it very well, and often they are hidden. But and that's why also you've seen skills to get a lot of traction, and also you see these new things, especially including agents called plugins. Plugins are basically just a skill plus an MCP server,
mhm.
and but I think that this is going to consolidate in the next iterations of the protocol, when MCP servers would return also skills. Um,
Yeah,
when a client is connected, because also with skills, for example, they are it's pretty easy, they you forget to update a skill, right? Because it's file system, and yeah, there are some ways to, like the skills sh, you can run the skill update, but why you should do that? This should not be decoupled right from the MCP server. So this is the iteration I'm most excited about.
okay, yeah. Coincidentally, I read an article on this one. I will add it to the show notes because that was a nice explanation of where it is heading. With regards to MCP apps, I mean, do you see a world where SaaS application will be consumed via those MCP apps, or is this for certain use cases, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that we've seen pretty recently with the SaaS apocalypse, and because yeah, at the end, the switch is real. Like everyone is doing most of their work from those kind of chats.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure that the chat or also rendering UI inside the chat is the final
experience.
yeah experience. I think more we will those chat interface will evolve to have some sort of dashboard that will be composed by different widgets, UI widgets coming from different SaaS, based on what you're doing, or maybe generative UI is a topic also. Um, but I'm sure that no one wants to log in to a SaaS anymore.
Yeah. I try to avoid as much as I can. Actually, indeed, I'm using a lot of them for work. We do have a bunch of them at Amazon, but trying to do everything through the agent, and that's fine. To retrieve
Yeah,
information, to read the information, to write.
yeah, at the end, something similar happened when before to use software, you had to download in your
Hmm.
computer. Now, no one's download basically anything, and you use every SaaS via the web. And same, exactly. Since we are experiencing like AI apps are the new browsers, then there's gonna be another transition, and those apps will live inside those AI chats,
Yeah,
and hopefully we already have a standard, right? Because luckily we have a standard, because at the beginning some companies try to push their own SDKs to build this kind of experiences, and luckily we had MCP, and that evolved, and this is really great. That the maintainers and the community is really active, and there is a so who's building the protocol itself is also has ties with all the major
players. Yeah,
companies that are building the clients, right? So this is this, I think we are lucky that we have a standard way to do that.
yeah, totally, totally. What would be your ask to developers who are listening right now, and or maybe what are some of your recommendations to start building with MCP apps?
Yeah. So what I would do is first I would start building maybe a normal old-fashioned MCP server, and my recommendation is also to uh, yes, you can use, for example, with MCPUs. We spent so much time in making the SDK ready for agents to use it, because also we've seen that no, so even 6 months ago we spent really so much time implementing and writing the docs by hand,
Yeah,
and and the docs were part of the product. Now I think skills are part of the product, so you need to design. So you need to design the skill to enable also a developer that is approaching building their first MCP server to get started with the simple concepts, and then as the development goes on, to present to the developer more complex features of an SDK. So, for example, the returning a UI is a tool, but also making this UI that is displayed in the chat, not just read only, but also interactive, so that it can send events back to the chat. So this is my recommendation: to start simple, to use skills, and we spent a lot of time improving that, and we also putting a lot of effort in making the SDK for the agent readiness of the SDK. So we are testing our SDK on how all the different model, all the different coding agents, if they are getting lost in the developing some ways, and also touching some features of our SDK. And this is where also some of our engineers' efforts has been spent recently.
okay.
So my recommendation, yeah, it's and then really experiment with everything that you can do by returning a UI in inside the chat. For example, for fun, I developed an MCP app that gets all the data from navigation systems to monitor the situation in Hormuz. So
Okay.
you can see a map. You can see where all the sails,
The
all the
ships.
ships are, and yeah, you can do really creative stuff inside those MCP apps.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Any closing remarks before we end with a few more questions?
Yeah, I don't. Closing remark is that if you heard about MCP and you're still stuck, like MCP CLI over MCP or vice versa, I think that CLIs are good for us developers, but probably not for the 99% of people who use software. That's why also MCP exists, or also that's why for example, if you are on the go, you cannot use a CLI on your phone, but
Hmm.
you still want to use certain products via those chat interfaces. So give MCP a second chance because the hype was there in 2025, but now in 2026 we see a real enterprise and companies adoption.
Yeah, totally. Cool. All right. How can developers can be useful to you?
um, like since MCP user is open source, we have also have a great inspector. So while you are developing an MCP server and you run the MCP server, we automatically open an inspector for you to test
Mhm.
different MCP tools. So all these SDKs and dev tools are open source in our GitHub repository. So go check it out if you have any recommendation or something you would improve. Super happy to read the issues and accept PRs. And ultimately, this is the being open source. Is great because developers can contribute and everything is open source, and I hope that it could serve uh, a lot of developers out there.
Great. Okay. Would you have a book to recommend? Something that you like very much? It doesn't have to be about tech, but it can be.
What I'm reading, it's I think the name is Thinking Fast and Slow,
Yes, it's a good
and this
one.
is a great book.
Yeah, yeah.
But also like everything Harari ever wrote is great. This is the first is a book that I'm reading right now, and it's super interesting. And I think also like the difference between system one and system two
Yes,
of our brain, it's similar on. I think LLMs are more system one if they don't think hard enough. And this is interesting to drive parallelism between the artificial intelligence and human intelligence.
indeed. What is your favorite dev tool that you have discovered lately or recently?
It's called Aura.run, and
Okay.
it's also built by Liad, the inventor of MCP UI, and basically is a tool that analyze a certain certain product, and tells you if it's a score. It assigns you a score on the agent readiness. So basically, it
Ah,
spawns a lot of agents using your product, and since all the software products need to be agent first, they give you a great framework and great suggestions on how to improve that. So
wow.
shout
That's
out to that.
cool. Wow. Nice. I'm going to use that. That's cool. I like that. What are you going to learn next or dive deeper on?
What I'm going to dive deeper on. I think we are at the moment diving deeper in the next release and version of the MCP protocol. So it's becoming, for example, stateless by default, and there
Mhm.
is a lot to unpack here, and also a lot that needs to be rebuilt, and that's where we will focus on.
Makes sense. And final one. What other developers should I interview next on the podcast? Who should I invite as a guest?
As I probably already told you, I think you should interview Adi from Agent Mail. They
Yeah.
are building email infrastructure for agents, and they were batchmates at YC, and they're doing great. And they also built their MCP server with MCP user, and they deployed it on Manufacture.
Yeah. And actually, I met with Adi last week in San Francisco, and he was wearing your MCPU's hat.
Really?
Yes.
Love it.
All right, Luigi, thank you so much for spending your time with us and today and explaining what MCP apps are and all the good things that you can do with MCPUs. Always great to have open source tools on the show. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, and also looking forward for different integrations with Amazon and AWS SDKs and products.
Sounds good. All right, take care, Luigi. Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.